Hey everyone, welcome to The Field Between. I'm Ahmed.
I'm Yasmine.
How's it going?
It's going okay. We have a lot of world updates and events that we'll get into shortly.
Mm-hmm.
But on a personal level, my last day of teaching was Thursday. And that felt really nice to wrap up the semester. Friday was the last day of the semester, basically. I had a lot of emails and stuff. It feels good to be on the other side of that. All things considered, it was a really lovely semester. I feel really grateful for my students. In classic end of semester fashion, I'm quite sick with a cold now. My body just kind of ran into the ground. But it's not COVID, so that's good. Just going to take the time to rest up the next couple days.
Yeah.
What else is going on? It's weird because I think last time we recorded, I was thinking the whole poetry event, that was really only a week ago. That feels like a lifetime ago for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's not even that much has happened this week. I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah. I just found out today I've been in kind of a big sort of legal battle.
Oh, yeah.
Over the last couple days. And I just, luckily today, the decision went my way.
Do you want to give some details?
I'm going to get judged for this.
No, you shouldn't.
No, I'm going to because of what the item is. So okay. It's
I think you should just expose yourself.
Yeah,
it's okay. We all come short. And it's not that big of a thing. You're not buying it directly from him.
That's true. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I have been trying to get together a couple of, in redoing the winter wardrobes and stuff. I'm just I work from home. I gotta have some comfy lounge clothes. I actually have the Yeezy hoodie that Kanye dropped with Gap a couple of years ago.
Which you love and you wear it all the time.
It's great.
Yeah.
I have it in a goldish brown color.
Let me set the scene a little bit. Ahmed has a very handsome monochromatic outfit with a gold Yeezy sweater.
So I'm trying to Sopranos. We watch Sopranos. I'm trying to get some tracksuit sort of
No, they're nicer than that though.
Era.
They're exactly cool. Yeah.
So I have a yellow kind of outfit that's color blocked. I want a black, all black sort of color blocked outfit. The last piece to put it together was the hoodie.
Another Yeezy hoodie.
Yeah, because it's just I say what you will, it's a well-made hoodie, and you just don't find that shit anymore. Everything is fleece lined on the inside. The stitching sucks, but this hoodie is actually
good quality,
really well made.
Yeah, this man cares about his fabrics and his quality.
It's really nice. So I was just okay, well on the StockX and all that stuff, they're just charging way too much money for it. And so I went to Poshmark to try to buy.
And I feel bad because I've only had pretty good experiences on Poshmark. And I think I actually suggested it. I was especially if it's something that's no longer being sold directly from the manufacturer, it's often cheaper. It's just a good, sustainable way to get something that's used. Yeah.
So I bought it on Poshmark and I pretty much got shipped a fake. And as soon as it came in, I was just hey, this is a fake. You can look at the stitching.
It has bleach stains.
And
it also just doesn't look like it's good quality. Yeah, I don't think it is a Yeezy hoodie. And even if it was, it's been through the ringer.
Yeah. So there's very clear discoloration and bleach stains on it. And
you paid not as much as you would have for the original, but a decent amount. Yeah.
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 So I took pictures. I was just hey, this, I'm not accusing you of anything here, but I don't think this is a legit thing. And even then, it doesn't look good. So I'm going to return it. And so the woman who shipped it to me just starts fucking going bonkers. She's just this guy's a scammer. He actually has one that he fucked up and now he's trying to take
you
mine.
Be a scammer and then you accuse the other person of scamming.
Yeah. And so I've just responded the one time. I was just hey, this is fake. Here it is, a comparison side by side of the other one that I have. You can tell the stitching is different. Even that aside, again, there's
bleach
discoloration
stains,
on it. And so I post that. I get the process going for a return, and then Poshmark has to investigate it and decide whether or not you should be able to return, whether it's actually been a misrepresented item or not. So I was waiting on them, but in the meantime, the woman who sold it to me, who also resides in Pennsylvania, but in Philly.
Yeah, thankfully, which is 4.5 hours away, but still.
Is just going nuts. She's this guy's a scammer. He just started his account the other day, even though she's saying this is also the first item that I've sold. I'm okay, that doesn't really
add up.
Do anything for you. She's just she says she's going to call the cops on me and send them to the address that she has on file.
And that's the creepy thing, because it was shipped here. I never really thought about this, but she does have our address, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's a bad system. So other websites that I've bought stuff from, like StockX, I think the person sends it to StockX.
And then they
they verify that it's a legit item, and then they send it to you, right? So there's an intermediary, as opposed to just giving a totally random person your address.
I've never had this though. I've gotten, but also to be fair, I guess I'm often buying just like a tank top that is black and like not like a particular brand, so there's not like a need. But yeah,
I bought a pair of sweatpants on there that were totally fine.
Yeah,
I don't love them because I got the wrong size, but that's on me, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not like out.
That is a tricky thing with this though. You're right. You can't like return it automatically the way you could with like a store. Yeah.
But make them. I'm just like, okay, that's a mistake I made. So I'm open to that. But this is like this.
I'll take those from you, by the way. You should get new ones.
Keep them.
I'd buy them.
Unless they shrink in the wash.
I'll buy them off you with my discretionary.
Interesting proposition.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll negotiate later.
Okay.
All right.
But yeah, this woman was just being deranged and like leaving you voice notes, right?
Yeah, so she finds my Facebook and then leaves me a voice message on Facebook Messenger.
I didn't think about that extra step. So she found you on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so scary.
And then somehow she also, after I didn't respond on there, she found my number and has been trying to contact me via text.
Wait, shit, I didn't think about all the steps that she like actually researched you. That's really creepy.
Yeah. So she definitely...
I thought that these were coming through the Poshmark app or something.
There are messages on the Poshmark site, like in our history, like conversation history.
But she's also directly...
Because the other thing that Poshmark does is when they ask for evidence, they ask me to take more pictures and post them. It puts it all into a conversation with her.
She like gets notified.
Right? So she's seeing that I'm like, just going ahead with the process anyway.
Yeah.
But she
that's pretty creepy. Yikes.
So she's a woman with like a heavy Bronx accent, which I think is funny. I don't know if I should play it on here.
I wouldn't. She's just like, I don't know. I don't want to open us up to any kind of like legal. Who knows?
Yeah. But she's just like, okay, listen, Ahmed, the hoodie, it's legit. It's a legit hoodie.
Yeah.
So don't go around trying to be trying to be a victim and tell Poshmark blah blah blah. And she's like, I have all the receipts from the fucking stupid Yeezy website where I bought it.
She probably bought the hoodie and kept it and then just bought another shitty hoodie. Yeah.
Who knows? So anyway.
Receipts, but
yeah,
that's scary that she
this
found
morning
your number.
Poshmark was just like, yo, you can return it. And
good.
We'll give you a full refund. So
hopefully,
it sucks that she has our address, but hopefully nothing.
Hopefully the drive is too far.
Yeah, I'm posting like pictures of the hoodie she sent me, and she's like, this thing looks like shit. This is definitely not the one I sent.
She's just a scammer. Yeah.
I'm like, yo, you're admitting that the thing you sent, I mean, she's not admitting that it is the thing she sent me, but yeah, it does look like shit. Anyway,
it's been a complicated legal week.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a pretty rough week. I've been like hella, like really just, I don't know. I feel like it's just been hard to actually feel emotion, right? Like I deal with depression a lot, and this is something that I just feel like on a scale like no other, where it's just your heart feels very hardened to like everything. And this has to specifically deal just with like the shift in discourse over the last couple of days around Gaza and Palestine, and just the resurgence of like these people are all rapists. And by the way, I think just given the topic of today's episode, I guess if we need to do a content warning, right? Like we're probably going to talk about sexual violence quite a bit,
which is like totally okay if that's not something that you're, obviously.
Yeah. So if that's something that really bothers you in that sort of way, I'd recommend not listening. But I think it's important to talk about. It's been hard, so we'll get into it. Do you have any items before we kind of start talking about that?
No, I'll just say on that note, like, it sounds trite, but I'm glad you're being so honest. Like, I'm sure you're obviously not alone in feeling that way, and it's good to.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I mean, I know a lot
yeah.
of people but we are getting to a point where this has been prolonged enough that I think they are trying to just wear people out. I mean, that's been said 1,000 times over, but it really is true. Yeah. And I was going to say, like, if I understand people feeling despair and feeling like there's nothing that they can do because People have been out in the streets. They've been protesting. They've been doing a lot, calling the representatives. And some representatives have flipped now and called for a ceasefire. But even ceasefire doesn't mean anything anymore, because
it would mean something in terms of stopping the death toll. But
an actual ceasefire. But like Israel has just like shown that it does not abide by any sort of international law, and the U.S. is like totally unrestrained.
No, it would have to be an actual ceasefire, not just like a temporary pause.
But it's just, it feels like no matter what you do, the machinery of war is just already going. And it's just very hard to
there's beauty
remain
in
optimistic.
resistance, though, and it sounds so trite, but I think that like, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say anything for fear of sounding overly trite when there is such horror, but like, I think we owe it to people who are suffering to not give up or like write it off, you know?
That, and I think there is an active dehumanization taking place of Palestinians, and they're suffering the very worst of it. And I'm going to try to say this in a way that doesn't sound navel gazy or like,
no, I don't think it is
solipsistic, but we are also actively experiencing alienation and dehumanization in a way that when we are forced to go to work or to just kind of carry on about our days and go about it like as though things are normal, and not point to this and just like pull our hair out over the frustration, that's incredibly dehumanizing. Like, you do lose your own humanity in this, and I think it's very important to reclaim that, and the way you do that is by finding meaningful ways to resist and
by finding community. I think absolutely,
and you don't resist on your own, right? Like you you're not just sitting here thinking about like reading a book is going to do nothing if you're doing it by yourself,
but for sure,
and then just like pretending that you're better than everyone, right, for having read it. But yes, meaningful resistance requires some sort of community, and meaningful resistance is the only way to fight back and claw back your own humanity. And I think that your own humanity is like inextricably linked with those of Palestinians. So you don't have a choice but to do something. And I'm not saying what it is you must do, because I think that differs based on situation and context or whatever, but it has to be a genuine effort to reclaim that, and not just a thing to make yourself feel better, right? Like someone asked me today, well, what good is it? Because protests kind of are starting to feel more like a coping mechanism than they are effective. And I'm like, cope is, to me, I haven't really thought this through, but it kind of is more of a critique of that self-care sort of language that tends to be
very
individualistic.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Rather than, you can fail at a protest. A protest can be ineffective. But if you're going to a protest to just make yourself feel better, rather than to see, is there a situation here that we can leverage to actually change something no matter how small? Great, if that works. But if it doesn't and it fails, then you need to go back to the drawing board and like figure it out with other people.
I would also argue like that there's different kind of magnitudes of action, but even like protests that have happened around where I work that make like the student news, and then the students who see that and are more likely to like look into the issue. Like there is something also about keeping something alive in the news and in people's consciousness that is important.
Absolutely.
That happens with like mass displays in a way that it doesn't happen if you're just by yourself thinking about something. Yeah. And it's not to say that it's enough. I don't think it is, but I think it's still something. Yeah. I think, the self-care thing is so tricky because I think that there's been a lot of, kind of capitalist co-option of self-care language and rhetoric in terms of like spa day, shopping, and none of those things are bad, obviously, but like ultimately that's just sort of a band-aid for what I think is more of like your soul needing a sense of connection. And of course you have to care for your body, your body houses your soul, but I don't think it's also, we don't help ourselves if we completely are lost to nihilistic despair and are incapable of action. So I think what we do, whatever we have to do in terms of like, it's a delicate balance. And again, I hesitate to say this because it's nothing compared to people who are actually suffering, but we weren't made to see ads from brands and then see these horrific photos of people naked, stripped, being lined up. Like it's not really right for our soul or for our brains. So
No.
I've been trying to be like a lot more thoughtful about just, I mean, only I shouldn't scroll at all before bed, but if I'm going to scroll before bed, only scrolling mindless content.
Yeah.
And then, and then I do look at that stuff during the day because you have to stay informed. But I think it's okay to set some limits for yourself. Yeah.
For me, I kind of take a little bit of a different approach. I'm like, I need to know as much as possible on this. And if that requires just consuming a ton of content, like I am kind of scrolling through this shit all day.
Yeah.
And it makes you very, it does fill you with dread and despair. And I think the exercise for me is to
not stop there, maybe
be able to take that in and not let it paralyze me.
Do you think that's possible though?
I don't know. That's like, that's kind of the struggle.
It's a thing to check in with yourself about, I guess. It's probably no clear cut answer.
Yeah. But, to me, it feels wrong to say I'm going to shield myself from images of this when people are I'm not saying like this is a critique of your position. Like I understand that this is how I think and not what I would prescribe for other people.
Yeah.
It feels to me like there are people actually living through this horror, and to shield myself from it, even mediated through like a phone screen, I don't know. It just feels like I should, have to see that in a way, and to kind of be able to like fully understand it. I think the dehumanizing thing, like, so the if it brings on nihilism, I would say definitely don't do it. But that nihilism, that apathy, I do think is a sign of you kind of succumbing to dehumanization, right? Like if someone is doing that and then they're like, oh my God, this like nothing can change it, blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm just going to give up and maybe make some acerbic statements every once in a while or have an ironic detachment to all this sort of stuff. That's you being dehumanized and not being human, right? Like the most human thing that we would be able to do in this moment is just to actually stop doing everything that's expected of us and just say we're not returning to normalcy until Palestinians are safe. But yeah, we kind of live in a world where that doesn't happen, and it kind of is able to incorporate even these sorts of horrors into itself. But we do need to find ways to slow this stuff down. And for me, I think just kind of reintroducing myself and continuing to keep up with it on that level has not made me like apathetic or give up yet. So I don't know.
I don't know if there's a clear-cut answer. I think it's kind of an individual basis. A couple of things I will say about that though. I think, and I know that you don't think this, I'm just sort of thinking more generally, consuming content is not action, No. And at least for me, I can read about something and it won't affect me as viscerally, but I believe it. I don't have to see the graphic images. Mm-hmm. And there can be, and I feel like this came up with the Black Lives Matter protests a little bit too. I think that there can be a bit of a dehumanization through the casual sharing of images. I never share graphic images.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not to say that anyone who does that is wrong, because I understand that there is a need to bear witness and like a desire to be like, look, this is happening. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there is like a casualness to it, especially because of the platforms that we are forced to use, mm-hmm. and the kind of back and forth whiplash between that and other forms of content. Yeah. Which I myself contribute to, so I'm not calling anyone out. Like I absolutely will post about something more casual and then post about this, that I just feel like it's not good for my soul. Like I just don't think that I feel more connected to the cause by looking at horrific images before bed. And I don't think that it makes me a better ally or so I think it really is an individual call. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
I think that one thing I do want to continue to do is really work on staying informed. And like, I've really been trying to work on sort of, I mean, I'm always interested in this, but like really being like having on my thinking hat when I'm consuming media, especially about this issue, and thinking about like who are the stakeholders. Like a lot of the things that I try and teach my students, I have to like constantly remind myself. Just because, I mean, I was saying this to you the other day, but it really makes you feel sympathy for people who get like a little bit like tinfoil hat conspiracy-esque, because it just feels crazy.
Yeah.
The way that the narrative is so biased feels nuts. So.
All right. So I think we can get into the overall conversation about the kind of changing media narratives, and then we're going to look at some stories and then some clips with the university president hearings and things like that. But yeah, like we said, this is going to cover a lot of discussion of sexual violence. One of the first things that I saw was a story in the New York Post that kind of, to me, I find troubling because of the way it talks about women, and is indicative of just kind of like a weird, I mean, I don't know. I'll just read the headline and then you let me know what you think, right? So, horrific news stories of Hamas attacks in Israel surface, including rape of beautiful woman with face of angel who screamed to be killed. And the really troubling part about this is that obviously it's describing something horrible, but there's no evidence substantiating it. And furthermore, the thing that grows out of this is that they're saying that Hamas commits mass rape as a tool for war. But even in a moment that it's describing like this horrible thing happening to a woman, it's still kind of male gazy or like fantasizing in like about her in a way. And I find that incredibly troubling, but that one was shared a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that element of like the weirdness of like describing her in that way. I have so many thoughts about that, and forgive me if I'm a little scattered because I just want to get through all of them. But one is that the Post is trash, but I think it's still indicative of broader trends. But it just like is so crass, and the Post has always been kind of that way. It's so tricky. I felt so uncomfortable. I don't know about you, but like I find it so difficult to navigate these conversations about alleged sexual assault, because on the one hand, exactly as you said, it doesn't seem like so far we've seen solid supportive evidence for like the allegations that this was like a mass tactic that was used. And so it feels a little cynical and awful, to just sort of, there's, I think, something very visceral about this idea of like the symbol of womanhood to a people, especially to a nation state. We've fought a lot of wars on the idea of like saving those women who need to be saved, quote unquote, whether they're in Iraq or Afghanistan. And I think there's something also about the idea of like our women, their purity. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a deep kind of social cut to sort of argue or to put forth a contention that this was something that was done systematically. The thing that I feel like I have to say, and I feel like there should be space to say, and I feel like it's sad that there's not, and I hope I do this justice, but I mean, it is possible that there were people who were assaulted, even if it wasn't systematic and it wasn't something that was widespread. And that is horrific, and it puts you in this terrible double bind, because you want to have room to like not lose your ability to be human and to say that like all assault, the same way that all killing is horrific, all assault is horrific. And if that did happen even to one person, that's awful.
I actually don't feel like it puts you in a bind at all. Like the thing is, like, if it happened to one person, let's hear about that, because I agree with you. Like that is awful. And I think the move is not to deny that it happened, period.
Well, I think we can deny that it happened systematically, because it doesn't seem to be.
There's absolutely no evidence for it. But when they bring up cases of one, like again, like this is a case of one girl, and I'm gonna read this quote again just to show you how kind of contrived these stories are. Quote, "I saw this beautiful woman with the face of an angel, and 8 or 10 of the fighters beating and raping her," recalled Sadan, a foundry shift manager. "She was screaming, 'Stop it already. I'm going to die anyway from what you are doing. Just kill me.'" Right. And then apparently when they were finished, they were laughing, blah, blah, blah. And like, so like, again, I'm not saying, no, none of this ever happened, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying, let's investigate that. And the thing is, Israel has refused UN investigators
Yeah.
to look into these things. And so why is that? And what they do is say it's anti-Semitic actually for you to want to come in here and investigate these claims
Right.
that we are using to then justify the brutalization of
Right.
Palestinians. And certainly there is no evidence for, again, the use of sexual violence as like a mass tactic.
Yeah, absolutely.
At all. However, and I can throw a clip in here. The guy who resigned from the State Department, who was overseeing weapons transfers, he mentions in an interview one of the moments when he realized that Israel was not bound by international law was when someone in the department brought forth credible allegations against IDF soldiers for raping a young boy. And those allegations were then brought to Israel by, I think, like a nonprofit or NGO or something like that. And the next day, that NGO, like that nonprofit, was shut down by Israel.
What happened on October 7th was an absolute atrocity, was 1,000 atrocities. I think at the same time we condemn those atrocities, we have to condemn the atrocities that happen every day to Palestinians in the West Bank. You mentioned sexual violence. I was part of the human rights vetting process for arms going to Israel, and a charity called Defense of Children International Palestine drew our attention at the State Department to the sexual assault, actually the rape of a 13-year-old boy that occurred in an Israeli prison in the Mosque Bia in Jerusalem. We examined these allegations. We believe they were credible. We put them to the government of Israel. And you know what happened the next day? The IDF went into the DCIP offices and removed all their computers and declared them a terrorist entity.
And we saw the images recently of Israel like demeaning Arab men and parading them like, almost naked. So I just...
There have been graphic images of women that were, after they were killed by Hamas, who were kind of paraded through streets and things that seem to be slightly sexualized. So I think it's not an either or. I think we're saying the same thing here. I think it's an and. And I do think there's a little bit of what's that quote by Malcolm X? Like, accuse the enemy of what you yourself do. Yeah, like I think there is a bit of like projection. Like the vast majority of sexualized violence is obviously being... Well, I mean, also just because of the sheer scale of violence, even if there had been more violence by Hamas that was sexual, it would now vastly be more perpetuated at Palestinians. But even then, I don't. It seems as if there isn't sustained evidence. And even like the Times reporting that I've read on this is so like shaky and like, it appears to be accounts of whatever. And there's no kind of like deep work done or like investigative work done because there can't be, because the IDF won't allow for that. And so you're literally only going off of what the IDF says, which is, they're like a propaganda machine in addition to an army. But sorry, did you want to say something or?
No, I was, I think they're trying to back people into like trying to support Hamas categorically. Just.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't think that's what you have to do in this case.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Right? Like, you can, understanding Hamas's existence and actions in the context in which it arose is one thing.
And you can still condemn those actions. Or not even condemn, but
I actually will not condemn like
any kind of sexualized violence. I 100% condemn. The actual resistance. I don't.
I condemn violence. Absolutely. Whatever. Right. Like, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Hamas grew out of a vacuum.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It grew out of conditions that the hegemon in the region, Israel, and then the United States created. Yeah. Right. The same way that we understand how ISIS was created.
Yeah, absolutely.
The same way that we understand how Al-Qaeda was created.
How the Taliban was strengthened. Yeah.
It does nothing to sit here and moralize about these people, because on some level, I feel like we do the work of saying like, making the violence an innate characteristic of a broader group of people.
And I don't think we're doing that right now.
No, I'm not saying we're doing that. I'm saying like to sit here and moralize, like for people to say, oh, like I condemn Hamas or, like.
Yeah, I should have used different words. But the point that I feel like is getting lost that I really wanted to make that is important to me is that I feel like even on our side of the issue, I'm seeing kind of weird rhetoric about like almost like a sanctification or like cleanliness, like too far in the other direction of like, oh, like, you know, the hostages were treated so well by Hamas, they're in love with them.
Yeah.
And part of that, I think, is not allowing for even the small possibility that there was some sexualized violence against women. And I feel like we can hold all this complexity together. We can be like, this is a cynical, terrible tactic to distract from the ongoing brutal violence against Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was sexualized violence or, you know, against Israelis, that is horrific. And neither of those things contradict each other. You know what I mean? But I don't want to be backed into a corner. And this is not you. I'm thinking more broadly about like rhetoric I've seen online and stuff of being like, I'm 100% sure that not a single Israeli woman was raped. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Some of those quote unquote Hamas fighters were just like people that joined last minute. Some, you know, I don't even know if they were all part of Hamas. Like, you know, they were, yeah, I mean, terrible things happen in war. Terrible things happen in parts of conflict, and women's bodies often are the ones that suffer those consequences in those kind of ways. So, you know, I don't know that for certainty. I'm not on, you know, I'm not on the ground. I'm not a reporter. I'm not someone who has access to evidence. No one has access to evidence. That's part of the problem, you know? So yeah, I just want to be really careful about that because the larger, I mean, it seems so trite, but like the kind of larger humanity, I feel like you have to keep on coming back to that. Like any kind of, we can recognize the ways in which this like tactic is so cynical and so manipulative. And part of that is kind of making light of what could have been if there was violence that was perpetuated in that way. Does that, I don't know if that makes sense, but
it makes sense. I the thing that I kind of come back to is that when talking about this, I don't feel like I suffer any sort of mental anguish in trying to figure out how to support Hamas and fight back against these critiques of like things that I know are horrible, right? Because at the end of the day, my support is not for Hamas, it is for the Palestinian people.
I completely agree with that.
And so like, you know, people want to make this about, oh, there was an instance of this, an instance of that, and I'm just like, there may have been, right? Like, and that is horrible, but yeah, like you said, like the cynical part of this is that they are trying to have, you know, the by the transitive property, like, right, if you support Palestinians, then you support Hamas categorically, right? And everything that Hamas does, you are then put in a position of defending. And that's just not where you want to be.
I agree. I don't think that's where I am either. I just wanted to make that other point. But
no,
I think
I'm not saying you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying like just people in general who feel like they are doing that now because that's kind of like where the discourse is like shifted.
I think another point that you sort of were getting at that I really agree with is also there is just this trope that is being fallen back upon. It's like, well, we don't have to have clear evidence because you just like know those brown men. Like that really is a kind of awful thing that's happening in this sort of description. Right. Like they're just rapists. That's kind of the implication, which is just something that has been done historically since colonialism against men of color. That is just like, and there's also, I mean, I've really appreciated, this is something I've learned a lot through social media that really was a good reminder for me. There's all this talk of like women and children. And of course, like we care for like women and children, like, you know, but like men's lives, like all these beautiful Palestinian men who are dying, like who had like children, like, you know, men's lives are like not any less worthy. I feel like it's so much easier to kind of demonize men in a weird way. I don't know. I feel like that's some, I don't know how to put that, but that's something I've been just thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They definitely generalize those actions, right, against the
as if like population. Every Palestinian.
And then if you are concerned about the ongoing genocide, then you are someone who supports that sort of violence,
which is ridiculous.
I'm so fucking like, my mind is blown by how much that has caught fire in the last.
Well, it was really smart propaganda.
No, but when it first came out, it was just like, oh, they were beheading babies and they were doing all this stuff, and people just like very quickly pushed back against that, and you could tell that it wasn't really catching fire.
Well, this is harder to prove. I think that's why it's a smart tactic.
And so there's this, and then, we can, we'll go to the just general anti-Semitism stuff, but like I have a couple of clips of.
I have one more thought I want to say really quickly, if that's okay.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Mona Chalabi, who was a journalist that you actually introduced me to, who does incredible reporting. She had a while back. She does her kind of style is like infographics, but like beautifully designed, really smart, really
she won
interesting.
A Pulitzer for what was it? It was
Jeff Bezos's
reporting.
Wealth. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was in the category of like illustration.
Yes.
And something.
Yeah. But she had and this was actually now a while ago, but she had like this graph that was showing like the number of Palestinians dead and the number of Israelis who died, and like the kind of reporting over time. And the crazy thing is that, entire family bloodlines are being wiped out. Like so many people are dying that it's kind of actually hard to comprehend. And the rate of reporting on the people who, again, it's awful that they died on October 7th is like at the same rate. Like the Times is like giving as much coverage to the October 7th victims every day as they are to the ongoing people who are continually dying in Palestine. It's insane.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too. Like they keep on trying to find more angles to talk about with this one event, as if that will be a carte blanche for any kind of violence that they want to inflict.
Right. So that's actually, that's a good point, is that they have lost momentum on the initial day, right? Like what's happening now is by no means cannot be justified by the events of October 7th.
No, it's a world away
and
in terms of magnitude.
They are mining October 7th
for everything they can.
Everything that they can, because now what we've seen since then, and what we know to be true based on testimony and based on like revised Israeli media, is that they initially reported 1,400 dead, they revised it down to 1,200, and now it's even, I've seen figures as low as 800, and we know that some of those were also killed by IDF
crossfire,
and Apache helicopters firing indiscriminately on civilian population,
killing their own
kibbutzes.
civilians.
In fact, they have counted among the dead, like there were a lot of people who were incinerated in cars that they're just burying with their cars because they don't know if they were Hamas soldiers or whatever, or IDF people. So they're just kind of counting those and discarding them. So a lot of they've lost momentum on the initial day, and so now they are coming out with just the most horrible stories you can think of. And what you can think of and what the mind fantasizes about is what's the most animalistic thing these guys could have done that day, and what are they continuing to do? Well, they're not releasing these hostages because they're just keeping them around as sex slaves. And it's horrible. But I wanted to show you actually a clip from an Israeli actress.
It's
like
on your
a
phone.
Pretty big account. Yeah, it's on my phone. And I think this was also, I could be misstating here, but I feel like this was shared from some official Israeli accounts as well. But it's...
I'd like to report a crime. Yes.
Sorry, let me just preface this a bit. It's a skit, essentially, like a commercial.
By an Israeli actress?
Yeah.
I'd like to report a crime. Yes. I was raped.
So sorry. We're here to help. Tell us what happened.
I was at a music festival. We heard gunfire and everyone was running. I started running and then he grabbed me. He yelled something in Arabic and then he ripped
Sorry to interrupt you. You said he was yelling in Arabic.
Yes. So he ripped my pants and then he just...
Sorry, I just need a bit of background here. Are you Israeli?
Yes.
And your rapist was Palestinian?
He was a Hamas terrorist.
Okay, this is a bit awkward, but we can't help you.
But I was raped.
Do you have any proof?
Yes, he filmed it.
Yes, hello, local police.
Don't take it personally. Management decided that all violence against Israelis is legitimate resistance. So sorry.
Oh, man.
My daughter has been kidnapped. Please help.
Sure, just before we get started, are either of you Israeli? On October 7th, Hamas terrorists brutally raped Israeli women and children.
And children. Holy shit. What an
There is no
allegation.
justification for rape and sexual violence. Rape is not resistance.
Yeah, this is
So they are
cynical as shit.
characterizing
Yeah.
all resistance as support for rape.
Support for rape. Yeah, no, that's really rough.
Um,
Again, really great propaganda machine.
So, I mean, it's awful because it's not only just this skit, again, that's being shared by official Israeli accounts as well, but it's fucking Hillary Clinton at the UN. So,
Wait, what?
the rape is not resistance.
What do you mean it's Hillary Clinton at the UN?
So there was Israel's permanent mission to the UN held I guess a press conference or an event in which Sheryl Sandberg, a bunch of
I saw that, yeah.
women spoke.
Mm-hmm.
So Hillary Clinton apparently spoke via video at the event, talking about sexual violence. I tried to find the piece specifically with Hillary Clinton, and I could not, at all.
Okay, but she didn't show this video, just to be clear.
No, she didn't
Okay,
show this
yeah.
video. She videoed in to talk.
Yeah.
But I could not find the video of Hillary Clinton at all, right? I was just like, Hillary Clinton, UN
Yeah.
speech, blah, 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 sexual violence.
Interesting.
Hamas. Could not, anywhere, not on her official accounts, not on any U.S. accounts. And I have a feeling
Oh, God.
that this is a fake video.
Wait, what?
I have a feeling that Israel just made a Hillary Clinton deep fake video to play at this event. This video, which was shared by official Israeli account, I cannot find anywhere shared by Hillary Clinton herself or anyone in the U.S. media at all.
So you are alleging that is it like a state account? What's the account?
It's ICC, which I forget what it stands. It's Israel something.
Okay, but a government account of some sort. So they shared this
Government
video.
affiliated for sure. It's a verified account. It's a verified TikTok.
So you think
account.
that they made up this video?
I think this is a Hillary Clinton deepfake.
Okay.
As you well know, many women and girls were attacked brutally by Hamas on October 7th, and they have testified to the gender-based violence that they both experienced and witnessed. As a global community, we must
She's pretty real.
respond to weaponized sexual violence wherever it happens with absolute condemnation. There can be
I think
no
this is real.
justifications
Yeah,
and
this
no
seems like Hillary Clinton.
excuses. Rape as a weapon of war is a crime against humanity.
But how scary is it that AI has gotten so sophisticated that we're not for sure.
in any society or any conflict.
I think that's real.
Okay. Well, I just want you to take a close look, though, because at the beginning of the video, for whatever reason, again, this is an official Hillary Clinton video, allegedly, and there are it has this filter on it that's making it look like it was videotape and that there's
I think they're trying to show the kind
static
of
in the
fog
footage.
of war sort of thing.
But
But you could be right. Who knows?
Also, her eyes are it's got a yassified filter on it. No, look, it has
Talking about.
a a TikTok yassified filter.
Many women and girls were
Look how
attacked
smooth her skin
brutally
is.
by Hamas on October 7th.
Maybe. I don't know. Interesting.
Bro, I don't know. Go take a look at this video. Anyway, the point is that
It's a strong campaign.
they held this whole thing at the UN where
Yeah.
even Hillary, if she gave this statement, I'm not saying this is a statement beyond her giving.
We
by the
know
way.
that she was there for sure. That was confirmed by media reporting. So yeah,
She was there?
or that she appeared in some form. I don't know if she was
appeared in
physically there
video.
or if it was video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the actual video? Hard to say.
I don't know. But she is also
She's very
doing the
pro-Israel.
media circuit. She's very pro-Israel.
Yeah.
She was on The View a month ago.
Yeah.
And then I think recently she's also been speaking against her own students at Columbia who have yelled at her.
Yeah. Though they've been booing her out of the lecture hall. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, it's kind of, the what's it called? The New York Post is one thing, but it seems like this is snaking its way through even official
And you're right. It is a smart tactic. It is very similar in terms of the 40 babies beheaded thing, which was entirely fabricated. In that it's just kind of a visceral, these animals sort of thing that if you're an uninformed average American probably really tugs at you and, gets you to very quickly make up your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like what you said earlier, right? Every accusation kind of is an admission, right?
Yeah.
The babies in incubators thing.
There are lots of Palestinian babies
like horrible stories of them rotting in their incubators because Israel cut off power and would not let doctors move them.
And just like ridiculous media shows like showing up with incubators though they already had them, but not with fuel to fucking run the incubators.
And again, the sexual degradation and violence.
Absolutely. Gosh, isn't it such a like, it feels so much like Abu Ghraib, like it's such an awful like echo.
Not only that one, but there have been like videos of this is even before October 7th, right? Like leaked footage of one of the Israeli prisons where they held a lot of Palestinians and just them like stripping them and like literally piling them up and kicking them while they're like all tied up and just treating them like animals. I just isn't it weird also how there isn't the same kind of mobilization around like sexual violence against men, like, or sexualized violence against men? It's interesting that it's not seen as sexual when it so clearly is and has to do with like demeaning of bodies. You don't really see like that sort of same like fantasizing rhetoric that you did that angel face. It's also not right, exactly that, and it's also not like it's not tied to like the nation state in the same kind of visceral way for some reason. Maybe because women reproduce, I don't know. So that's one. Anything else to kind of say on? No, let's look at these hearings because I have a lot of thoughts on these. They're crazy. Okay, so a couple of university presidents from MIT, Penn, and Harvard were called to testify in front of Congress on anti-Semitism, and just kind of this happening in the background of the House passing a resolution that says that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. And I don't have the time queue, so we'll probably skip around a lot to try to find sections to talk about, and we can just talk about it. We don't have to watch it. We specifically wanted to, I think the part that really caught fire from this hearing is when Representative Stefanik, I think that's right, was questioning about the use of the word intifada in chants, and she is asking she's asking the university presidents whether she is stating that intifada means a call for Jewish genocide. And then she's asking whether calls for Jewish genocide on campus constitute a violation of conduct. Yeah. While you're talking, do you mind if I use your phone? I want to pull up a Times article on this because it was fucking crazy.
Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate MIT's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
If targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Can I say
yes
something?
Or no?
So the thing that is so upsetting about this is that the fucking university presidents just like let go the premise that to call for intifada, to call for resistance, is to call for genocide of Jews, which is an insane thing
they
to allow. How could you accept that premise? That's crazy. I mean, if you actually did think that, then you should be like, no, they should not be right. Then like also the weird thing is exactly the logical conclusion of that, and then they should have been like more like, that is hate speech. But the reason why it's not is because groups like Jewish Voices for Peace are also getting fucking banned off of campuses. There are so many anti-Zionist Jews. There are so many people of different backgrounds who are against the state of Israel, and it is not anti-Semitic to do that. It's crazy that they just allowed for that. And like these kind of calm, lawyerly answers, they just did a terrible job in terms of press, instead of just like actually fighting back. Let me play a little bit more of it here.
Genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
Oh my God.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules?
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
I am asking
these
specifically
idiots.
Calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's
These
a
idiots.
context-dependent
Ugh.
decision. That's your testimony today, calling for the genocide of Jews.
She did a
is
great
dependent
job.
upon the context.
These are the presidents
I know.
of fucking the highest
I
institutions
know.
in the U.S. and they're getting fucking taken to school by this idiot. Like this.
Tell us more, because you were the one who filled me in on her
moron.
background. Yeah.
So Elise Stefanik is a representative from New York, and she is. I mean, you can just look at the controversy section of her Wikipedia page.
But tell us, yeah.
She has, she's platformed this guy. I can't remember his last name though, but it was someone else who was running for office, and who has been on record saying that Hitler was a good leader and that we need more leaders today like Hitler. She platformed
With bedfellows like these. Yeah.
She is a QAnon believer, right? Like, so she has, says she believes in the Great Replacement theory and stuff like that.
Which is basically a white supremacist theory that that white people will take over the U.S.
No. Great Replacement theory is a theory that saying that like it is a concerted effort of like the Democratic Party and the liberal establishment to replace white people with black people.
Right,
and, like,
but then
people
they
of
think
color.
that there should be the reverse, that like we should have like a white majority society.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is the thing that's going to lead to a race war of,
Yeah, so the people who like marched on Charlottesville, who were like, you will not replace us,
Yes.
those were big white replacement
which is an
people.
anti-Semitic thing.
Absolutely.
They were saying Jews will not replace us at Charlottesville. And this is
I'm
someone
always
who,
impressed by the people that Zionists are willing to like build coalition with, like just incredibly anti-Semitic people. It's crazy.
So she's like a fucking moron, but she did this thing at the beginning that no one pushed back against.
Yeah.
Saying that Intifada is a call for Jewish genocide.
Yeah.
And if you buy that premise, and she's asking you, is a call for Jewish genocide against your code of conduct, then say, man, I haven't heard anyone saying a Jewish genocide, but yeah, if they said that would definitely be
absolutely.
against
Such an easy answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna play a little bit more of it, and then because I want you to hear the one that people are most mad at, and I think just because Harvard is in the people's mind as like the premier institution in the U.S. Claudine Gay's response, which is also not great. I didn't know she was Roxane Gay's like cousin or whatever.
I know that either.
Yeah.
Interesting. Not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it is, if the
Yes
speech
or no?
becomes, if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes. And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's
oh my
the
God.
context?
Girl, who
Targeted
is
as an
calling for
individual,
this?
Targeted at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism? I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric. When
And is it anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer
Okay.
Never accept their premise.
Yeah,
Never.
this is like
There's some
debate
real
101.
basic debates. Yeah, exactly.
this
As
is-
someone who was a debater in high school, you just don't accept a flawed premise, man. Don't set yourself up that way. I mean, this is obviously infuriating and so upsetting, but it's good to see because just from a pure love of the game kind of perspective, she really killed it. She did a great job.
Medium. I mean, I don't know how they're trying to do this thing where they're trying to be very nuanced to the point where they have screwed themselves over. They're saying once it becomes conduct, meaning that if they were to say it to a Jewish student, that is conduct, right? But if they were to say it in a vacuum, then whatever, right?
Which is why would we care about that if they were alone in a room and no one heard them? Yeah. So dumb. This is when intellectuals are not good at being real people.
Yeah.
That's so stupid. I mean, obviously, if anyone heard a call for the genocide of anyone, you would be outraged. But then the thing, again, it's the saying the thing, but what's actually happening is there is a group of people that are being ethnically cleansed in real time. And it's so crazy that this is the fucking conversation we're having when actual people are being cleansed.
And not only that, but as far as college campuses in the United States go, the documented violence has
100%.
all been against Arab, Muslim, Palestinian students.
Yeah. And there has been a rise in anti-Semitism, but it is not because of the actions of people who are pro-Palestine.
It is not these protesters. It is not Palestine activists.
Not. Yeah.
It is, anti-Semitism has been committed and perpetrated by mostly white Americans.
100%. Yeah.
Right? Not in any association with the Palestine movement.
Absolutely.
However, there has been violence the other way. And still we see the victimization narrative the same way that Israel is being oppressed by the people it has caged up. The Jewish students on campus are being oppressed by the students who are calling on their universities to divest from a fascist apartheid regime.
It's also, it's a very cynical manipulation of. It feels like people are also using kind of Jewish students in ways that are sort of creepy and their alleged XYZ. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, but there was the around the same time that this happened, the Republicans held a press conference and they invited a bunch of students from, I think, NYU and Penn to give testimony about I don't feel safe on campus.
Yeah.
It's sad. There's the one that.
I did see someone from NYU. Yeah. I mean, there are those voices, but it's crazy the rate at which they're being platformed and the rate at which also, again, anti-Zionist Jews are kind of not being picked up by the media in the same way. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, also, since this has happened, the day after pretty much this fiasco, all the presidents, I don't know about MIT, but Penn and Harvard had to walk back all of their statements.
Yeah, I know Penn especially had a meeting with their trustees or something with their financial people who were maybe you should resign.
Penn's one of Penn's biggest donors threatened to pull $100 million, which look at the money behind this, right?
Absolutely.
They threatened to pull $100 million, and now the Wharton School Board is kind of revolting against the president.
And Wharton is Penn. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. But what's this New York Times article?
Yeah, I mean, this is just kind of showing the what?
You probably need me to unlock the phone.
No, I remember.
No.
Wait, I think I remember. Yeah, I remember. Okay. I mean, this is when I first read about it, I was a little bit late. I think I was catching up the next day on the news. I think it was just insane. This is a Times article. College presidents under fire after dodging questions about anti-Semitism. Just the fact that these reporters did nothing to investigate or think about the premise of the debate, but completely just defaulted to the kind of Zionist narrative was insane. So here's the first paragraph. Support for the presidents of Harvard, the University of Pennsylvania, and MIT eroded quickly on Wednesday after they seemed to evade what seemed like a rather simple question during a contentious congressional hearing. Will they discipline students calling for the genocide of Jews?
Not are there students calling for
right, exactly. You would think if that was happening, that's something that would be part of the reporting, right?
Yeah.
Here are documented instances where people are calling for a genocide of Jewish students, which is not fucking happening.
Yeah.
And that's just not, they just completely accept the premise. There's no part of this article.
And if it were to happen, man, would it be so easy to be you should not do that?
Yeah, 100%. But and it just kind of talks about it's so funny and interesting, basically, that Stefanik is kind of, this right-wing figure, but there's coalition around her. Nothing about kind of her own anti-Semitism, which again is so easily Googleable, is in this article.
On her Wikipedia page.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just kind of like, how quirky and interesting is that she's pretty far right and that other people are coalescing around her in this moment because she did a good job. Like, that's the whole tone. It's really, really crazy. Yeah, I mean, I feel a lot more sympathy lately for people who are super distrustful of media because I personally think it's so important to read these more mainstream sources and kind of think through like what kind of narratives are getting out there. But it just drives me crazy. It's so nuts. Yeah.
It's a fucking layup of a question. And there's something so frustrating about watching this because it feels like everything is happening in slow motion where you're like, oh, this is such an easy thing to push back against. And I guess it's because we've just been paying attention to this on such a high degree that
I guess
we know the arguments, we know like how to push back against like the bad faith ones especially, and we don't feel like we're ever pinned in a corner where we have to support things we don't want to support in order to advocate for Palestinians. But I guess not everyone is like that. I would have expected Ivy League university presidents to just be able to just dunk on this shit, you know, like, but they don't. And I have to wonder if partially if it's like incompetence or just like not knowing this stuff or not caring.
I think they're also so paralyzed by thinking about donors that ironically they actually have like fucked themselves more than they would have if they took more of a bolder stance. Like there's so much corporate speak and carefulness that they actually, even like from a donor perspective, like even if they were only worried about their bottom line, they could have done a better job in this one instance if they were less cautious.
I mean, okay, I don't want to say anything that's going to get you in trouble, but like, it's like university presidents, like, what
Definitely
are you doing? You're just like the figurehead of a hedge fund.
I love my job. I feel so privileged to do it. And universities are corporations. Yeah.
The elite ones especially, right? Like
They all are.
They all are.
I mean, think about, I can say this now because I'm not at UNC. Think about, UNC was the worst. With the Board of Trustees was crazy. Or what do they call it? The Board of Governors.
Well, I'm saying in terms of being a hedge fund, like these, all the public institutions, but especially these elite private ones are just like, and you're just supposed to be like, you're the marketing piece, right? Like, I think what it's shown me is that even someone like the president of Harvard, like, doesn't really run Harvard, right? Like,
no, it's mostly a financial role, honestly. Exactly. Yeah, you're a steward of the endowment
of the capital.
Yeah.
But not even. I guess like they have CFOs and like boards that manage this shit.
Yeah.
And there's like, okay, well, you failed at your task of going out and being a good representative.
Yeah. I feel forever vindicated about future free speech skirmishes. I'm just going to be like, clearly free speech is not really the bottom line issue here.
Yeah.
So we can feel free to advocate for values that we would like to see on this campus.
Yeah. And I don't know. There was also the Columbia, what was it? No, was it? It was Dartmouth's student.
I don't think I saw that. What was that?
Or not student president, because the kid who was shot in Vermont.
Yeah.
One of them, the three kids who were shot, one of them went to Dartmouth.
Oh, really? Yeah. One went to Brown, one went to Haverford, right?
Sorry, no, it was Brown.
Okay. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I think it was Brown, Haverford, and another university I'm blanking on. But one of them definitely went to Brown.
Yes.
Yeah. The kid who was really good at math.
Yeah. Or they had a vigil at the university him at Brown, and the president of Brown spoke. And while the president was speaking, students started chanting for her to divest Brown in, weapons manufacturers that aid Israel and, to divest from Israel, essentially. And so, I might slide this clip in here, but they were chanting during her speech and just like wouldn't let her talk because she was just doing this whole thing. It was like, we feel so bad,
right?
Blah, blah, blah.
But not the root cause of why this violence
not
happened.
Addressing anything of substance at all. And she gets offended. She's just like, is this how you want to remember your friend? Is this what you want to do right now?
Right.
Sadly, we can't control what happens around the world and across the country. We're powerless to do everything we'd like to do. But there's so much that we are doing and continue to do. having a vigil for your friend, our student. Let me tell you how I was going to end this, which was, I was going to say that at a faculty meeting last month, I said that every student, faculty, and staff member should be able to proudly don a keffiyeh on the Brown campus, or to cover their head with a hijab. And that Brown is a strong and loving community.
And to be clear, they all lived, alhamdulillah, but with various.
But he's paralyzed from the waist down, from the neck down.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's like a moment where like you just don't know how to be a human or like think. Yeah, it's like overly intellectual to the point where you just have this barrier between you and your students, or you and the rest of society. I don't understand it.
Yeah. Did you see the clip of I'm blanking on his name, but one of the students and his mom went on like one of the mainstream and she just such a beautiful, eloquent job talking about like her fear for her son and how like this violence is connected, like how they debated him coming home for like winter break. They're from somewhere in the West Bank, I'm blanking on where, and they thought he'd be safer in the US. Like it was just so heartbreaking, like thinking about her protecting her son.
No, I didn't see that clip, but yeah.
Maybe I'll send it to you if you want to insert a little part of it. It was really beautiful and just like so simple and so like plain, you know, like where in the world will my Palestinian son be the most safe? But
somehow, like the narrative, the dominant narrative is that college campuses are somehow just these war zones for Jewish students, and
I'm not seeing evidence of that. I mean, thank God, that would be horrific. I think something I do feel comfortable saying is I'm really worried about repercussions for like free speech on campuses because of these hearings.
What do you make of a lot of people have been saying that this is back in 2016, we had the whole fight over campus speech thing, but in the other direction, right? And people were like, you shouldn't be able to say, I don't know, like all lives matter rhetoric or whatever, blah, 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 on campuses, because that is hate speech. And it's just like, I'm sympathetic to that, because I'm just like, why you got to be a dick? But I don't recall there ever being like actual firings and congressional level changes in terminology to make it so that you can shut down student groups. There was not the level of legal mobilization against that stuff that there is now.
I think that's an excellent point, and a point that I honestly haven't seen made enough. Like, yes, it's fair to say there are some parallels, and it is interesting that there was a more kind of leftist push against certain forms of speech on campuses. But I think you're right that the stakes are so different because of the power dynamics and players. Like, I don't think that no one lost their job, as far as I'm aware, because of either trans issues on campus or
it may have happened.
BLM issues. Definitely, if it happened, it's not at the rate that we're seeing currently. I think that's totally fair to say. There weren't congressional hearings about it.
The amount of money, like $100 million to say, someone said all lives matter on your campus.
100%.
Like, no one threatened.
No, completely. You were not going to lose money from a donor for saying all lives on campus. And that just shows you the stakes and like who actually cares about who's right to like freedom of movement and freedom of protection. No, I think that's a really good point, and honestly one that I wish was being made more in mainstream media.
I had an item wholly unrelated to any of this.
All right, it might be good to end on a kind of lighter note. Is it a lighter item?
Kinda.
Okay, let's see.
I meant to bring it up at the beginning, but we just kind of got into things. Is there anything else that you wanted to?
No, I really appreciated the opportunity to think more about the hearings. Yeah. In particular.
I had someone ask me, I think before we close on it, it's like I did have someone ask me, like, what do you do? Because, like, again, I'm at a point where I just feel so sometimes paralyzed, but I think I try to, like, manage, but I just don't know what to tell other people, especially now, because I do think these media narratives, the shifting around, oh, well, you support this violence, and it's very strategic in that now we're talking about, no, I don't support this and I don't support that, rather than we should please stop killing, like, Palestinians.
Right.
But it is very demoralizing. So I don't know. What do you say?
I think the thing that guides me is that people in Palestine are not giving up. I just don't think it's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's an option to completely say, like, well, it's not going to work out. Like, there are people fighting every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't think it's responsible. Or, I think it sounds harsh, and I don't mean it harshly, because obviously, like, especially the intersections with mental health are very real, but I do think nihilism is a privilege to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And so without being hard to yourself, I think it's fair to remind yourself of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess just kind of going to recount the latest kind of statistics or whatever, and kind of hopefully maybe cement that point, but the 80% of Palestinians have been displaced, and the death count is in the tens of thousands, right? Some people are saying 20.
Oh, I think it's higher. Yeah.
It's, I mean,
I've heard closer to 20. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
10,000 is 20. Sorry. Yeah.
Around half of the infrastructure is just totally decimated.
Yeah. People also were told by the IDF to move south, and the south is now being bombed indiscriminately.
And it's not just that people are dying now, but they have leveled the infrastructure to the point that people are going to continue to die as a result of this bombing.
From disease.
For years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Palestinians were already watching their family members die in hospitals from treatable diseases before this, because Israel had such a stranglehold on what could and could not get into Gaza. And now, with an even more concentrated population and fewer resources than before, there's no denying that the death toll could come out of the tens of thousands into the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
At some point.
I had one other... Sorry, did you have more?
Mm-hmm.
I had one other thought on kind of like the sort of nihilism thing. I felt mixed feelings about this kind of idea of, like, teach us how to live, like, kind of like that we can learn from resiliency of Palestinians, because on the one hand it feels like, well, like, their suffering is not just for us to learn from, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
that's important.
Something that I do appreciate about that move is kind of like, and this is complicated to talk about, but I do think that there's a reason that we feel more viscerally connected to this conflict than we might have other forms of mass suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's okay to acknowledge that, you know, like, at the same time, which I don't think this is an issue that should be identity based, because it is a simple issue of humanity. And just by being an American citizen, you were so automatically implicated because of your tax dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is something that, because, you know, whether it's like a shared ethnic identity for people who are Arab, or if because it's leading to so much of kind of generalized conversation about Muslims, like, there are certain people that I think do feel called or, like, connected to this conflict in a way which I think is fair to say that there often are other conflicts of mass suffering that we don't connect to in the same way. So I guess what I'm kind of saying with that is that almost like a call to just be more in touch with, like, our humanity in general, if that makes sense. Like, there always is this level of suffering somewhere in the world, and we can't be connected to everything at the same time. That's not humanly possible. But just to kind of expand our consciousness and, like, our level of what we think is acceptable on a global level. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think specifically you get in touch with your humanity through other people, not through your own thinking and being like, oh, the teach us how to live thing. I also felt a little bit
it's complicated.
Because I'm like,
I
these
think
people weren't born to
teach us how to live. Yeah, exactly.
Be like perfect examples. Again, in a weird way, it is also begging for the perfect victim. But from the kind of if you want to
the sense of solidarity.
They're flawed and complex human beings like the rest of us, and
they deserve to live.
They deserve to live flawed and complex
Absolutely.
and beautiful lives in many different ways. Teach your fucking self how to live, but also like do it through community, right? Like I think that's the important thing, is just if you're just isolating yourself because you feel like all these people are bad and like they don't feel the suffering that I feel for the Palestinians or
right. That's kind of what I was getting at. Like, how do you then show them that, you know, exactly. Sorry to cut you off, but I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, go talk to people, and through that, like, you can, again, think about tactics and situations that you can create that are meaningful.
Exactly.
Just
and it's a both
words.
end. Like, you can support Palestine, and you also should still be invested in local community. And there's so many ways that those overlap. So being thoughtful about those ways, like being thoughtful about ways that many, you know, municipal police forces throughout the U.S. are trained by the IDF. Like, you know, realizing that these things are connected.
Yeah.
And that like our commitment to this one issue doesn't mean that we forsake others, but like just like allowing for more connections and complexity is something I want to really challenge myself to do also. Yeah, I feel I might have you cut this, but should I just talk about it and then you can cut it if I want you to?
Sure.
Something I've been struggling with a little bit is and this is like a little specific to me. I don't think everyone has to think about this the same way, but like, yeah, like we can be really invested in this conflict and you still should hold to account things that we are implicated in too. Like, so something I've been thinking specifically about, I'm really excited. There's an online teach-in that I'm going to go to this week about, there have been like 1 million Afghan refugees like expelled from Pakistan. And like, if you are Pakistani or someone who is part of like the South Asian diaspora, just thinking about legacies of colonialism and how they're connected and like holding yourself to account too, you know, like it sounds stupid, but I feel like part of being pro-Palestine should be thinking about the ways that people around the world suffer from imperialism and from state violence. And just, a call to action on multiple fronts, especially where it intersects with like forms of community that you intersect with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's important. We're actually going to have a friend of ours at some point come talk to us about the, you know, genocide in Bangladesh that happened.
At the hands of the Pakistani military.
You know, timely also because Kissinger just died and he kind of greenlit that genocide, and so it's a good time to talk about it, but it's also a good time to talk about it because what we're seeing in Gaza and Palestine is I think it's very relevant, and you kind of have to know. I think it gives you a more, again, like it can only give you a better understanding of what's happening in Palestine and give you better language to critique it, and hopefully better language than these university presidents to push back against framings of resistance as terrorism. So yeah,
and then use that framing also for other issues is what I would say too. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's unfortunate, but like what's happening in Palestine is it follows a sort of playbook that has been, you know, used in a lot of other genocides.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's obviously it's like important to learn that stuff, and that doesn't mean that you're taking attention away from a thing, but that, you kind of have to critique the whole apparatus.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your closeout item?
So shifting, I meant to put this at the beginning, and maybe I'll cut it out and put it there, but maybe not.
The magic of editing.
I just saw this today actually, and I was looking it up, but in North Carolina, where we came from, Disney is planning on building a community.
Oh, that's in North Carolina.
Yeah, dude.
What? I saw that you posted that, but I didn't click on the thing.
So Disney is going to be building a. Oh, I got the.
Wait, where in North Carolina is it?
It's near the Triangle.
What? That's so silly. I just assumed that shit was in Florida.
So Disney Story Living Residential Community coming to Pittsburgh in 2027.
Oh my God, that's where we met. Like the very first time we ever met.
Yes, that's right.
At a house party, yeah.
According to Disney's press release this week, Asteria, a 4,000 unit community, will hit Chatham County market soon. Which immediately when I thought about this, I don't know if you kind of remember in season 4 of Succession, the Living Plus narrative.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Where they were trying to start like a residential community of like people based around the news media that their giant conglomerate creates.
It's an exciting new vision we call Living Plus. Yeah. Living Plus. Look, the world's tough. It's tough. It's getting tougher. What our incredible new product offers is a sanctuary. It's a place where it doesn't feel you or your mom or dad are surviving life. It's somewhere you're really living. Living plus.
So this is like a Disney Plus community.
It's like a Disney Plus community. Yeah, I fucking hate it. I don't know what it's
I will say, if it had to be somewhere in North Carolina, Pittsburgh was really weird. Like, there's actually some cute coffee shops and stuff, but like there's a lot of like Confederate shit, which is obviously awful and creepy. And then there's like a massive like a giant cat sanctuary. Mm-hmm. And then there's like a cat where I got my old cat from, who my roommate thankfully now has, who I love very much. Like there's a giant like cat forest. It's just kind of like a bizarre place. So if it had to be somewhere in North Carolina, that kind of makes sense.
Well, it seems like maybe they're about to wipe out a lot of that forest area. So the community will come to life on 1,500 acres in the heart of North Carolina's picturesque Chatham County.
Oh, they better keep the cat forest.
Single family homes. They're probably going to build it on the bones of the cats in the cat forest.
All the like half cared for sad
You're
cats.
just going to be sleeping at night and just hear like weird wailing and meowing.
Oh no, don't say that.
Let's see.
Oh my god, that's so weird. What does it mean to be part of a Disney community?
The images also on that they've released for it are like just clearly generated by AI.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like it's not. This looks awful.
Yeah. It's very blurry.
It's just like a huge
pools,
suburb
though.
with like 8 different swimming pools, just like right in the middle. I don't understand why there are so many swimming
This is
pools.
a good argument for God and religiosity. Like clearly, like if you want to be in a themed community, you might need like a higher sense of calling or like a belief in a higher power. And Disney is lovely, but that's maybe not it. Maybe try, Islam or Judaism or
Do you think they're gonna
radical
have, like,
forms of Christianity.
Disney police that arrest you if you don't like break out into musical?
They should have
like
like Tasmanian devil themed like police, or like they should all be like bad. That's not Disney, but you're right. They should have like I'm blanking, but you know what? You get the idea.
Yeah.
Disney villain police. Ursula, that's Disney, right?
Yeah, but I feel like there are probably better.
That'd be cool because she has all the tentacles. She could just like grab you.
I can't think of any Disney police, but there are definitely Disney police, right?
Well, I'm guessing any of the bad guys could
You
just
could
kind of
have
be police.
those like bad Arabs in Aladdin.
I was just
Those
thinking
could
that.
run
I'm
around
glad you
with
said it because you're Arab. I
scimitars.
wasn't gonna say it. But that would be good.
Is
Yeah.
Paw Patrol Disney?
I don't know what that is.
It's like a new kids cartoon thing that children love, but it's like a bunch of cop dogs.
Really?
Yeah,
No, I don't know.
that might be Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's scary.
If we move back to North Carolina, maybe
We can be part of the Disney
move
community.
into the story living community.
I would definitely visit and walk around, but I would never live in Pittsburgh. It's a little weird there. The vibes are weird.
I just can't imagine like a worse fate than living in a suburb
That is Disney
with
themed.
a bunch of Disney fans.
So there is like something like that actually already exists in Florida, I think, but it's like outside of Disneyland, so at least it kind of makes sense, or Disney World, whatever's there.
Is it Ave Maria? Florida? It was the guy who owns Domino's started his own like Christian community, but
Is it like Christianity meets Disney? That's so interesting.
Oh, there's another Disney community?
No, I thought that's what you were saying. I don't know.
No. He just started a place called Ave Maria?
No, there's like an actual Disney sponsored like community that already exists. Yeah, outside of the park in Florida.
Oh.
Yeah. I fell down a YouTube hole one night and I was watching people review like their homes are all kind of built in the same way, and they have like little like carved in like Mickey Mouse motifs and stuff.
Yeah. Besides
Besides that, it kind of just looks like a random cul-de-sac though, honestly. It's like nothing's that special.
Yeah.
But they go to the park a lot, and so they like living there. Yeah. I'll give that a little bit more of a pass because like at least they're geographically close to the thing that they love, and like, if you found your thing, that's great. But it just feels weird to live so far from that and have a Disney themed life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the other thing actually, we might be able to get there easier too, starting in a couple years, because the U.S. is getting some more trains.
Is it actually?
Oh yeah,
Wait,
and a high-speed rail line that's starting finally between Richmond and Raleigh.
Are you sure that's really happening? Isn't that been like
No, it
2
is.
decades
and I
ago?
think another high-speed rail line is actually planned and I think funded between Boston and New York, and it's going to take 40 minutes to get from Boston.
Oh my
to New
gosh,
York.
that'll be incredible. When I was doing my master's at Harvard, like that bus would take like 7 hours. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I had so many awful like day-long bus trips.
Yeah.
What I really want is a rail between freaking Raleigh and Durham. That would change my life if we moved back.
Mm-hmm.
That was so annoying that wasn't there.
Yeah.
But those are all good updates.
But we can live in a little Disney community. I'll get arrested for not singing. And you can,
if I could live in a place with excellent public transit, maybe I would live in a Disney themed place.
If you had to dress like a Disney princess and then live your whole life in like a very Disney way, but you also had high speed rail, would you take it?
I'd consider it. Yeah, I would love high speed rail. I'm trying to think about which princess I would be. I'd probably be like Snow White, because Jasmine, you'd have to like always really be sucking in throughout the day. It's a hard outfit to wear all day.
They'd probably make you be Jasmine.
That'd be a lot. Yeah.
I can't imagine that in a community like this that's owned by a massive conglomerate that there's like a lot of choice.
By adaptability.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that covers it.
Bye.
Bye.